Have you ever celebrated something, only to discover, minutes later, that the people cheering with you were actually planning your downfall? If your answer is yes, then you already understand what I felt that night. If your answer is no, then buckle up, because what happened to me may change the way you look at your own family. Before we dive in, make sure you hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story on VengeTaleStory, where real betrayal meets real justice. Now, let's begin. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 62 years old. And last Friday was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Not normal happy, I'm talking about the kind of happiness that feels like a second chance at life. Because after 35 years of grinding, sacrificing, losing sleep, losing hair, losing friends, I finally sold Hailtech Robotics, the company I built from nothing. A company people once laughed at, calling it too ambitious, too expensive, too forward-thinking. But I proved them wrong. And that night, the wire transfer cleared. $75 million. Enough to give me rest. Enough to let me heal. Enough to make peace with the death of my wife, Grace, 3 years ago. She didn't live to see this moment. But I did. And I wanted to share it with the only family I had left. My daughter, Lena. My son-in-law, Dorian Kane. But if only I knew. If only I understood what was really going on behind those warm smiles. I would have chosen to celebrate alone in silence. Because that night, the night I thought was my victory, was actually the beginning of their plan to erase me. Grace would have known. God, she would have known. Before cancer took her, she once looked at Dorian and said, "Marcus, that man looks at your daughter with love. But at your wallet with hunger." I laughed it off back then. I thought she was being overprotective. Grief makes you blind, you know? When she died, I clung to my daughter and the man she loved because I didn't know how to let go of them too. Lena was my whole world. My little girl who used to dance barefoot in the living room. Who once cried for hours because she accidentally broke my favorite coffee mug. Who held my hand during Grace's last breath. She was all I had left of Grace. So when she married Dorian, a man who knew how to smile, how to charm, how to be exactly the person people wanted him to be, I convinced myself Grace was wrong. I convinced myself he loved us. I convinced myself I wasn't alone. Even when deep in my gut, I felt something wasn't right. But you don't question family. At least, not until it's too late. I invited them to Azure Crown, the most luxurious restaurant in Seattle. Crystal chandeliers. $1 million wine wall. Soft orchestral music. And a view over the harbor that looked like a painting. Perfect atmosphere for a celebration. Perfect atmosphere for betrayal. We laughed, we toasted, we reminisced. At least, I thought we did. Halfway into the dinner, I got a call confirming the wire transfer. The money was officially mine. I excused myself, stepped outside, answered the call. And when I turned to head back inside, I noticed a young waitress staring at me. Trembling. She couldn't have been more than 19. Big anxious eyes. Hands twisting the hem of her apron. Like she was fighting whether to speak or to stay silent. I smiled at her gently. "Are you all right?" I asked. She swallowed hard, stepped closer, and whispered, "Sir, I'm sorry. But I think your daughter's husband put something in your drink." My world didn't freeze. It didn't stop. It burned. Like my heartbeat was suddenly fire. At first, I didn't react. Couldn't react. I thought maybe she was mistaken. Maybe she mixed him up with another table. But the way she kept stammering, shaking, whispering. "He opened a small silver capsule. He tapped something into your wine. And your daughter looked around to make sure no one saw. Told me she wasn't confused. She wasn't panicked. She was terrified. And not for herself. For me." I asked her what she thought was in the capsule. I don't know," she said. At first I thought it was sugar, but... Sir, I don't think it was. Then she did something that broke my heart more than betrayal ever could. She begged me not to return to the table. Have you ever been in a situation where a stranger protected you more than your own blood? A simple waitress cared more about my life than the daughter I raised. The son-in-law I welcomed. The family I trusted. That realization didn't hit me yet. But it would. All at once. Soon. I thanked her quietly and walked back into the dining room. My mind was racing, but my face stayed calm. Decades of boardroom battles had trained me well. I sat down, pretending nothing happened. Pretending everything was fine. Dorian smiled at me with that polished, elegant charm. The kind of smile that hides a knife behind the teeth. "Everything okay, Marcus?" he asked. I nodded. Made a small joke. Laughed. Then I accidentally knocked over my water. The tablecloth was drenched. Everyone jumped. In that split-second chaos, I quietly swapped my glass with Lena's. I didn't know what was in the drink. But I wasn't going to find out by drinking it myself. 10 minutes later. Lena collapsed. Her body twisted. Her eyes rolled. Her lips turned blue. For a moment, the entire restaurant froze. Dorian jumped up and immediately began controlling the room. "She's having a panic attack. Move. Don't touch her." He stopped Maya from calling 911. He tried to drag Lena away from the table. He acted like a man trained. Prepared. Expecting this. And that was when everything inside me turned to ice. Because while my daughter convulsed on the floor, while strangers screamed for help, while Maya stared in horror, Dorian leaned close to me, grabbed my arm so tightly I felt bone grind, and whispered, "You should have just drunk the damn wine." My daughter was dying at his feet. And he was angry his plan failed. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't grieving. He was furious. Furious at me. Furious that I lived. Furious that someone must have warned me. And in that moment, I realized 3 terrifying truths. 1. This wasn't an accident. 2. This wasn't impulsive greed. 3. I was supposed to die tonight. But trust me, VengeTaleStory family. This was only the beginning. Because the poison wasn't the worst part. The betrayal wasn't the worst part. Not even the collapse at the restaurant was the worst part. No. The worst part was discovering why they wanted me gone. And the horrifying plan they had been preparing for months. If you're still here, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment "I'm here" so I know you're following the journey. Because what happened next? It changed everything. Before we begin, let me ask you something. What hurts more, being poisoned by an enemy, or realizing your own child stood beside them while they did it? When the waitress, Maya, pulled me aside earlier and told me Dorian slipped something into my wine, I thought that was the worst blow I could take. But I was wrong. The real blow came when she added, "Your daughter, she was watching for him." My daughter. My Lena. My only child. The baby Grayson I prayed for. The girl who slept on my chest during thunderstorms. The young woman who wrapped her arms around me at her mother's funeral and whispered, "It's just us now, Dad." The idea that she would stand guard. That she would help. That she would watch her husband drug me. It didn't make sense. Not then. Not yet. But the truth has a way of sharpening like broken glass the more you look at it. And that night, I would be forced to pick up those shards. One by one. Whether I wanted to or not. I returned to the table. A calm expression stretched across my face like a mask I hadn't worn since my business days. Dorian and Lena were laughing. Genuine laughter, practiced laughter, almost mechanical. If I didn't know what I knew, I would have thought they were happy. Normal. Family. But now every sound felt wrong. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every glance felt like it was hiding something. I forced out a shaky laugh of my own. "Sorry, just had to take an important call," I said. My palms were sweating. My heart was pounding hard enough to crack ribs. But my mind was cold. Dangerously cold. I accidentally knocked over my water glass. Everyone jumped. "Oh, clumsy me," I joked, wiping the table. Under the cover of chaos, my hand moved fast. A slight slide, a subtle shift. And just like that, I switched glasses with my daughter. I didn't know if the drink was lethal. I didn't know the dose. I didn't even know if the poison was slow or fast. But in that moment, I chose to live. And in choosing to live, I sealed what came next. I replay that decision every day. I still don't know if I made the right one. But I didn't have time to second-guess myself. Because 10 minutes later, Lena collapsed. One moment she was laughing at something Dorian said. The next moment, her smile snapped off. As if someone had taken a pair of scissors and cut it away. Her face drained of color. Her pupils widened. Her fingers curled like claws. Then she hit the floor. Hard. Her body jerked violently. Legs kicking out. Hands trembling. Her breath sputtering like a flickering flame. Her lips turned a frightening shade of blue. There are screams you never forget. Your daughter's scream is one of them. "Lena!" I shouted, diving to her side. But Dorian moved faster. Not out of love. Not out of fear. He moved like a man trying to control a scene. "Back up," he barked. "She's having a panic attack." Panic attack? I'd seen panic attacks. This wasn't that. This was something else, something stronger, darker, chemical. Maya rushed forward with her phone already dialing 911. But Dorian blocked her like a wall. "Stop. No ambulance. I'll take her." His voice cracked, not with grief, but with frustration. He wasn't trying to save her. He was trying to protect. The plan. He grabbed Lena by the shoulders, trying to haul her up. But her body was limp, shaking uncontrollably. Maya slipped past him and shouted into the phone. "We need an ambulance now. Possible poisoning." Those words made the entire restaurant freeze. And Dorian snapped. "Shut up," he roared, grabbing Maya by the wrist. My instinct fired instantly. I shoved him back, hard. "Get your hands off her," I yelled. For a moment, the facade cracked. His polished smile was gone. His gentleman persona shattered. And the monster beneath peeked through. Within minutes, paramedics arrived. They lifted my daughter onto a stretcher. Her breathing was uneven. Her eyes were open but not seeing. She whispered something. A name, maybe. A sound. Or a plea. I'll never know. As they rushed her through the doors, I tried to follow. But Dorian grabbed my arm. Not gently. Not like family. His fingers dug into me so hard I felt the pressure in my bones. He leaned close, face twisted into something hateful and unfamiliar. And he whispered. "You should have just drunk the damn wine." That was it. The moment my world shifted. The moment every doubt vanished. The moment the truth stopped hiding in shadows. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't heat of the moment anger. This wasn't even about money anymore. This was a plan. A calculated, rehearsed, practiced plan. A plan my daughter seemed to be part of. A plan that went horribly wrong. For them. But what terrified me, what clawed into my chest and stayed there, was the realization that I didn't yet know the whole plan. Only the first act. And trust me, the first act was nothing compared to what they had prepared. I stood there in the middle of the restaurant, shaking, cold, and suddenly very, very alone. The man I trusted was now my enemy. The daughter I loved might have betrayed me. The celebration I had dreamed of became a nightmare. And the life I built was now hanging by a thread. But the scariest part? I still didn't know why. Why poison me? Why tonight? Why this way? What were they hoping to gain? What were they afraid of? What else had they plotted? How long had they been planning it? And the worst question of all. If I hadn't switched the glasses, would anyone have ever known what really happened to me? I didn't know it yet. But the hospital would reveal something far darker than betrayal. Something that would flip my view of everything. My family, my future, even myself. And it would come from someone I least expected. If you've ever walked into a hospital with someone you love fighting for their life, then you know what helplessness tastes like. It tastes like metal. It tastes like fear. It tastes like blood you didn't know you were biting from your own tongue. That night, when they wheeled my daughter into St. Emmerich Hospital, I felt that taste coat my throat. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't yet see, was that the real battle wasn't happening in her body. It was happening in the lies around her. And I was about to hear the very first ones. They rushed Lena through double doors, past rows of beds and frantic nurses. Machines beeped in sharp, panicked rhythms. The bright fluorescent lights made everything look too real, too harsh, too exposed. I tried to follow, but a nurse blocked me with a firm hand. "Sir, please wait here. We need space." I nodded, though my chest felt like it was caving inward. Behind me, footsteps approached fast, heavy, frantic. Dorian. His performance began before he even opened his mouth. "Lena. Baby, I'm here. Let me through." He shouted it loudly, dramatically, clearly aiming for witnesses. When a nurse stopped him too, he spun toward the waiting area and slammed his fist into a wall. A single tear rolled down his cheek. It was cinematic. Perfect. Practiced. I saw it differently now. I saw the cracks. You know that unnerving moment when someone acts too upset? When the emotion doesn't match the timing? When the tears feel like they're arriving on schedule? That's what hit me. Nothing about him felt genuine. His worry wasn't for Lena. He wasn't screaming out of love. No, he was screaming because the plan had gone wrong. Because I had gone wrong. He kept glancing at me. At my hands. At my lips. Checking to see if I was shaking, hallucinating, stumbling. Reacting to the poison I was never meant to avoid. When he saw I wasn't, his face twisted, just for a second, into something cold and furious. Then he slapped the mask back on. The ER doors opened. A doctor rushed toward us. "Who's the parent?" "I am," I said. Dorian stepped in front of me. "No, we are her family." I didn't argue. "Not yet." The doctor looked between us and spoke fast. "She's not having a panic attack. She's in toxic overload. We're administering stabilizers now." "Toxic?" I asked. "What do you mean toxic?" The doctor hesitated, just long enough to make my stomach drop. "It appears to be a drug overdose. Something strong. Possibly antipsychotic level." "An antipsychotic?" My legs weakened. Behind me, Dorian gasped loudly, too loudly. Then he launched his lies like rehearsed lines in a play. "Doctor, listen, she's been depressed lately." "No, she hasn't," I snapped. "She's been overwhelmed by her father." The venom in his voice felt like a slap. "She said he's been confused, forgetting things, causing stress." I stared at him in disbelief. He didn't even wait. He kept going. "She must have taken something on her own, she's been unstable." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Because the way he described her, the way he weaponized those words, it wasn't just an excuse. It was a script. A script he'd been preparing. A script he'd been waiting to use. And then he turned on me fully. "This is your fault, Marcus. She told me you've been slipping mentally for months. She was scared. She was trying to help you. My heart slammed in my chest. Slipping? I repeated quietly. Oh, don't play dumb, he sneered. Everyone sees it, you're confused, old man. That phrase. Those words. You're confused, old man. They hit harder than any shove. Harder than any betrayal. Because suddenly, my memories lit up like a string of warning lights finally coming online. Lena finding my keys in the freezer. Dorian pulling a bill out of my coat pocket and saying, Marcus, you forgot to mail this again. Lena crying on my couch, wiping tears with shaky hands, whispering, Dad, are you getting worse? I'm scared you're slipping. Me forgetting things I knew I hadn't forgotten. Moments that didn't add up. Strange questions they kept asking. Little tests disguised as concern. But I had brushed it all off. Because who questions their own daughter's tears? Who questions the man their daughter married? Who questions family? But now everything made sense. They weren't checking on me. They were building a case. A case where I would be the confused, unstable, incompetent old man. A case where I wouldn't be able to defend myself. A case where they could take control of everything. Not just my money. My freedom. My name. My life. The poison wasn't just about killing me. It was about discrediting me. About making me look unstable. So that when I collapsed or hallucinated or lost control, everyone would believe the story they already planted. It was genius. Cruel. Heartbreaking. But genius. Hospital pushing boundaries, Dorian doubles down. Doctor, Dorian insisted, you need to put him on psychiatric evaluation too. He's dangerous. He's delusional. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Dorian wasn't just lying. He was trying to flip the script so perfectly that I would walk into their trap willingly. But I didn't. Not today. Because at that moment, I understood the one thing Dorian never expected. He thought I was still grieving. He forgot who I used to be. So instead of fighting, I exhaled slowly and lowered my gaze. I might be confused, I whispered. His whole expression changed. Relief washed over him like warm water. He bought it. He actually bought it. That was my confirmation. Finally. Undeniably. Everything Maya said was true. Everything the doctor implied was true. Everything I suspected was true. Lena's collapse wasn't the tragedy. It was the mistake. The mistake that gave me a chance to live. I'll go home, I whispered softly. I'll rest. Good, Dorian said immediately. Too quickly. Too satisfied. He turned back toward the ER doors, barking orders about seeing Lena, pretending to be the grieving husband again. And I walked out of the hospital. One step. Then another. Then another. The automatic doors slid open. Cold night air hit my face. I inhaled deeply. The deepest breath I'd taken in years. Because outside those doors, I stopped being the confused old man they wanted me to be. And I became who I truly was. Marcus Hale. Strategist. Builder. Survivor. And starting right then, I was going to uncover exactly what my daughter and her husband had planned. And why they were willing to destroy me for it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened a door you once felt safe behind, only to realize it was the doorway into your own betrayal? Because that's exactly how it felt when I walked into my daughter's condo at 3 a.m. Not as a father visiting family, but as a man stepping into the crime scene of his own planned destruction. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit notifications for more unraveling truths on VengeTaleStory. Now, let's go deeper. I stood in front of their building, my breath fogging in the cold November air. Lights were off. The street was silent. I reached under the fake rock beside the welcome mat. The spare key I gave them years ago. Back then, it was an act of love. A father telling his daughter, "This is your home too." Tonight, it felt like a shovel. A tool to dig up a truth I wasn't ready for. I unlocked the door. The condo was dark, peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Lena's shoes were still by the door. Her coat hanging perfectly on the hook. A faint smell of lavender candles lingered in the air. Everything looked normal. But nothing felt normal. There's something strange about searching your own child's home. It feels like trespassing against your own heart. But something stronger than guilt pushed me forward. A need. A pull. A feeling that the truth was hiding in plain sight. I scanned the living room. Then the dining table. And then I saw it. Lena's laptop. Open. Charged. Waiting. She never used a password around me. She always said, "Dad, it's just us. There's nothing to hide." A lie I didn't realize was a lie until that moment. My hands were shaking as I lifted the lid. Not from fear. Not even from anger. But from the terrifying possibility that the truth would be worse than anything my imagination could conjure. I clicked the trackpad. And the screen woke up instantly. Desktop wallpaper. A picture of Lena laughing at the beach. Sunlight catching the edges of her hair. It twisted something inside me. A memory of a girl who once lived without secrets. Before Dorian. Before this nightmare. Then my gaze lowered. There was a folder on the desktop. A single folder. Bold, in white text. Project Lighthouse. Nothing else. Just that name. A name that sounded harmless, hopeful. But the moment I saw it, something in my gut clenched. I clicked it. And that was the moment my life cracked into before and after. The folder opened to dozens of emails. Subject lines that didn't feel real. Assessment plan symptoms to observe emergency petition strategy Rourke's dosage advice Marcus Hale competency file. My name. My illness. My supposed decline. Written out like a report. A verdict. A death sentence. I clicked on the first email. It was from Dorian. "We need to finish compiling the list of behaviors. The judge must believe the progression is real." Behaviors? Progression? I scrolled. Lena had responded. "I'll tell him Dad forgot to turn off the stove again." And the missing wallet thing. I froze. The stove incident? The missing wallet? Those were staged. I kept scrolling. Every forgetful moment I thought was me getting older. Every little mistake they pointed out. Every concern Lena gently whispered. It was all engineered. They were scripting my downfall. Creating a timeline of fake symptoms. Fabricating episodes. Making me look unstable. Bit by bit. Day by day. They weren't just killing me. They were erasing me. The next email was from Lena. And it broke me. "He's lonely. He won't fight. Once the doctor signs off, Dad won't even understand what's happening." My heart shattered. Not because of the words. But because they came from her. My daughter. My baby. The girl I taught to ride a bike. The girl who sang off-key karaoke with me at her 12th birthday. The girl who used to fall asleep hugging my arm when she was scared. And now she was saying, "He won't fight." A sentence with no love in it. No compassion. No conflict. Just cold calculation. I sat back, staring at the screen. My chest tightened. My breath shook. Grief flooded me. Not grief for my wife this time. But for the daughter I thought I knew. And then another email pulled me back in. An email darker than the rest. It was from Dr. Mateo Rourke, a psychiatrist with a clean reputation. Or so I believed. His email read, "If the drug makes him hallucinate or becomes disoriented, it will speed up the process. You'll have stronger grounds for an involuntary psychiatric hold." My blood ran cold. They wanted me alive, but incompetent. Unable to speak. Unable to sign my own name. Unable to testify. A prisoner in my own mind. A man who could no longer say, "This isn't true." Because to everyone else, I would look insane. The more emails I opened, the darker the truth became. This wasn't simply about inheriting $75 million. It was about burying evidence. I opened another message. This one from Dorian. "The federal audit will uncover the shipments. If Marcus is deemed incompetent before it completes, we can halt the audit process." Shipments? I read on. Dorian had been using Hailteca's shipping containers, the ones registered under my company, to move unregistered materials. Not drugs. Not weapons. Something even more dangerous. Illegal biotech samples. One email spelled it out. "If the auditors connect the exports to us, I go to prison. We need control over Marcus ASAP." So that was it. He wasn't just greedy. He wasn't just manipulative. He was desperate. And desperation makes monsters. But the final blow, the one that knocked the breath out of me, was the last email in the chain. Sent by Lena. Her words were short. Cold. Final. "Do what you have to do. I trust you." She trusted him. Not me. She trusted the man plotting to destroy her own father. My throat tightened until I couldn't breathe. I wasn't shaking from fear. I was shaking from heartbreak. Scene: Marcus shuts the laptop, tries to breathe. I closed the laptop slowly. The room felt smaller. Darker. Colder. I stared into the dim shadows, asking myself questions I never wanted to ask. How long had she planned this? When did she stop loving me? Was it gradual? Or sudden? Was I blind? Or was she hiding behind love the whole time? And worst of all, if she had succeeded, would she have cried at my funeral? Or would she have celebrated quietly with Dorian, telling herself it was necessary? I wiped my face with my hands. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time didn't exist in that moment. Only pain. And then, my phone buzzed. A message. A simple text. From an unknown number. "Are you okay? I'm outside." Maya. The waitress. The girl who barely knew me. The only person that night who chose truth over fear. She had followed me to make sure I wasn't alone. A stranger. Showing more loyalty than my own blood. In that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the people who save your life aren't your family. They're the unexpected angels standing in the shadows. And I knew then. This story wasn't over. It was just beginning. You know, people always say betrayal hardens you. But the truth is, it doesn't make you harder. It makes you hollow. And when I stepped out of that condo, after reading the emails that revealed how my daughter and her husband planned to destroy me, that hollow feeling was the only thing keeping me standing. So when I saw headlights flick on in Maya's small, beat-up Toyota idling at the curb, I didn't feel relief. I felt confusion. Why was she still there? Why would a stranger wait for an old man who had nothing left to offer? And that question would change everything. I pulled the passenger door open. Maya looked up from the steering wheel, eyes red from either exhaustion or worry. Probably both. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Are you okay, sir?" I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know the answer. Was I okay? No. Was I safe? Absolutely not. Was my heart in one piece? Not even close. But I forced a nod. Thanks for waiting. She shook her head. No. I wasn't going to leave you alone. Her words hit harder than she probably intended. Because in that moment, it dawned on me. This young woman, this waitress who owed me nothing, was the only person who had protected me that night. Not my daughter. Not my son-in-law. Not the people who claimed to love me. A stranger. Someone who saw the truth and did the right thing even when it terrified her. It's funny. You can spend your entire life doing everything you can for your family. Pay their bills. Support their dreams. Sacrifice your time, health, and happiness. But sometimes, the people you least expect become the ones standing between you and ruin. I climbed into the seat and shut the door. The moment the lock clicked, I finally exhaled. Slowly. Painfully. Like I had been holding my breath for hours. Maya gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. "Sir, you're not safe," she whispered. I turned to her. She swallowed, then continued. "When your daughter collapsed." Dorian didn't flinch. He wasn't scared. He didn't even look surprised. Her voice cracked. That wasn't an accident. He expected something like that to happen. And he expected it to happen to you. I closed my eyes. Those words shouldn't have hurt as much as they did. Not after what I saw on that laptop. Not after the way Dorian had whispered. You should have just drunk the damn wine. But hearing it from her, from someone honest, someone outside the nightmare, made it real in a way nothing else had. I finally spoke. Do you think Lena knew?" Maya hesitated. And that hesitation answered the question before she found the courage to speak. "I think she knew something." She didn't look shocked either. Just scared, like she was afraid things weren't going according to plan. A plan. She said it so casually. A plan. As if planning to dismantle someone's life was just another task on a to-do list. I whispered, mostly to myself. "My own daughter." Maya lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, sir." Sorry. The word echoed through the car like a ghost. Sorry for what they did. Sorry I didn't see it. Sorry I still love my daughter despite everything. But beneath all that pain, another feeling started to stir. Not anger. Not hate. Something older. Something hardened by decades in business. Something that grief had buried. Courage. A courage I didn't think I still had. A courage that only awakens when you have nothing left to lose. I turned to Maya. "Can you drive me to someone?" "Who?" "An old friend. Someone who can help me fight back." Because I knew one thing. I couldn't survive this alone. Not against Dorian. Not against a doctor he had on his payroll. Not against forged medical signs. Not against a pending conservatorship hearing I hadn't known about. If I was going to survive, I needed a predator. The drive took 30 minutes. The sky was still black. The world was silent. But inside my chest, a storm was gathering. We pulled up to a towering glass building. A penthouse suite on the very top. Elijah Cross. My former corporate attorney. A man who had once been called a shark wearing a $1,000 suit. A man who defended companies like they were kingdoms. A man who could smell a lie before it was spoken. A man who never lost a case, because he never played fair. Exactly the kind of man I needed. I knocked on his door. It swung open after a few seconds. Elijah stood there in silk pajamas, hair messy, expression annoyed. Then he saw my face. His annoyance evaporated. "Marcus?" He stepped aside. "Get in." I sat on his couch. Maya stood quietly near the door, unsure if she belonged. I handed Elijah the laptop. "Read." He scrolled. Eyes narrowing. Jaw tightening. Finger tapping with growing fury. He read the emails. The payment logs. The messages from Dr. Rourke. The staged symptoms. The emergency conservatorship plan. He looked up slowly. His voice was low. Controlled. Deadly. Marcus, they weren't trying to poison you. I swallowed hard. Yes, I know. They were trying to kill my mind. No, he shook his head. Worse. I stared at him. Elijah leaned forward. They were trying to give you drug-induced psychosis. Enough to disorient you. Enough to make you seem unstable. Enough to place you on an involuntary psychiatric hold. His voice grew colder. You would have been alive. But permanently discredited. Legally powerless. Financially erased. Medically silenced. I felt the room tilt. A life sentence inside my own mind. A living death. Elijah stood up abruptly. This isn't just greed. This is conspiracy. This is medical fraud. This is attempted incapacitation. This is financial exploitation. He paced back and forth like a man mapping a battlefield. And Marcus, this is something else too. Something darker. He stopped. He turned. Dorian's been laundering money using your company's export channels. The world stopped. He continued. He needed you out of the way before the federal audit uncovered it. Then he declared. With the cold certainty of a man who had ended empires. We take him down at sunrise. Sunrise. 6 hours from now. 6 hours until everything changed. 6 hours until the real battle began. Because if Dorian and Lena had a plan, Elijah Cross had a war. And trust me, war was exactly what we needed. Have you ever walked into a room knowing the entire world was betting on your downfall? And still walked in with your head high? Because that morning, the morning the sun rose like a sharpened blade over the city, I walked straight into a courtroom designed to bury me. But I wasn't walking in alone. I had Elijah Cross, the most dangerous attorney I'd ever known. I had Maya, the unexpected protector who showed more courage in one night than my own family had in years. And I had the truth. Ugly, brutal, undeniable truth. Loaded like ammunition. This wasn't just justice. This was war. Before we dive in deeper, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit notifications, because what you're about to hear is the moment everything turned. Now, let's go to sunrise. The courthouse was colder than usual that morning. Not the kind of cold that bites your skin. The kind that sinks straight into your bones. Elijah checked his watch. 15 minutes, he said. He's going to walk in confident. Make sure you do the same. I nodded. Inside, my stomach churned. Fear. Grief. Anger. A strange, sick mix of all three. But above all that, a single thought kept echoing in my mind. My daughter helped do this to me. Elijah opened the glass doors, and I followed him inside. The room was small but intimidating. Wood-paneled walls, high windows, and a judge whose tired eyes said he'd heard lies from better men than the ones about to enter. Only a handful of seats were filled. A conservatorship hearing this early in the morning? Suspicious in itself. Elijah muttered, they rushed this so you wouldn't show. And he was right. At exactly 7:55 a.m., the doors swung open. Dorian Kane walked in first. Suit pressed, eyes glossy with well-rehearsed tears, holding a thick folder of forged reports. Lena followed behind him. Her eyes were red and swollen. But not from grief. From guilt. Real guilt. The kind you can't hide behind mascara. The kind that weighs on your shoulders like wet cement. I felt something twist in my chest. Part of me still wanted to protect her. Part of me wanted to believe she'd been manipulated. Part of me wanted to hold her and ask. Why? Why me? But another part. A colder, sharper part. Knew that love didn't excuse what she had done. The judge flipped open a file. Mr. Kane, he sighed, you may proceed. Dorian stepped forward with an exaggerated, shaky breath. Your Honor, we are here to petition for an emergency conservatorship over my father-in-law, Marcus Hale. He is mentally unstable, confused, and currently missing. We fear for his safety. He even dabbed at his eyes. Oscar-worthy performance. I watched the judge nod slowly, absorbing every word. Lena stood behind her husband, hands clasped, head bowed. Everything in her posture whispered. This is the story we practiced. This is the lie we're selling. Just believe it. The judge leaned back. Mr. Kane, do you have supporting evidence? Dorian lifted the folder dramatically. Yes, Your Honor. Emails, notes of confusion, medical concerns, statements from a licensed psychiatrist. He didn't get to finish. Because at that moment, the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. And Elijah said quietly, Showtime. I stepped inside. Silent. Steady. Alive. Not hallucinating. Not trembling. Not confused. Every head turned. The judge's eyes widened. The clerk's pen froze. A security guard muttered, Is that? But the best reaction, the one I will never forget, was Lena. Her breath caught in her throat. Her knees literally buckled. She had to hold the bench for support. Her eyes filled with terror, not relief. Not joy. Fear. Because she knew the plan had failed the moment I walked through that door. And Dorian? He froze like a man who'd just seen a ghost crawl out of its grave. His whisper barely escaped his lips. No, this can't be happening. Oh, but it was. And it was only beginning. Elijah walked confidently to the center of the room. Your Honor, he said, voice smooth as glass. I believe we have a bit of a misunderstanding. Dorian tried to recover. Your Honor, he's unstable. He's delusional, Sit down, the judge ordered sharply. Elijah opened his suitcase. Pulled out documents. A tablet. Screenshots. One by one, he laid them out before the judge. Let's start with this, Elijah said. Emails between Mr. Kane and Dr. Mateo Rourke, detailing a plan to fabricate signs of cognitive decline in Mr. Hale. The judge's eyebrows shot up. Then, Elijah continued. We have payment logs, showing Mr. Kane wired $175,000 to Dr. Rourke's private account in the Cayman Islands. The courtroom murmured. The judge held up a hand for silence. Elijah didn't stop. He presented. The emails forged to make Marcus seem delusional, the time-stamped video of Dorian handling the tainted vial at the restaurant, the evidence of staged dementia signs, the manipulated documents prepared for the conservatorship hearing, the offshore accounts Dorian hid, the illegal biotech shipments traced through Haleteca's export system. The pieces came together like a puzzle, forming a monster. Elijah stepped closer to the bench. And if that isn't enough, Your Honor, we have the toxicology report from the hospital showing antipsychotic substances in Ms. Hale's bloodstream. The same substance intended for Mr. Hale. The judge stared at Dorian, face turning crimson with rage. Is this true? He demanded. Dorian's lips trembled. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. He had been caught so completely, so violently, that even words abandoned him. The judge slammed his gavel. Mr. Kane, you are under investigation for medical conspiracy, fraud, and attempted incapacitation of your father-in-law. Security, detain him. 2 federal agents stood up in the back row. Elijah whispered, right on time. They moved toward Dorian. He panicked. Bolted toward the exit. Tried to shove a guard. And then screamed. It was her. She switched the glasses. It wasn't supposed to be her. The courtroom gasped. Lena collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Not because she regretted the plan, but because it failed. Because the life she built on lies was collapsing in on itself. And she couldn't stop it. As the agents dragged Dorian away, shouting like a man drowning in his own guilt, I looked at my daughter one last time. Tears streaming, hands shaking, face pale. A little girl lost in the ruins of her own choices. But this wasn't the end. Because the hardest conversation, the most painful confrontation, was still ahead. What happened next is where hearts break. Where truth wounds deeper than betrayal. Where a father asks his daughter one question no parent should ever have to ask. Before we move on, let me ask you something. What hurts more? When a stranger betrays you? Or when the person who carries your blood looks you straight in the eye and lies? Because I thought losing my wife was the worst pain life could offer. I was wrong. What happened next? In that quiet, sterile hospital room, was the kind of pain you don't recover from. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to VengeTaleStory. This is the moment where hearts break and choices define destinies. Now, let's go to the hospital. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and grief. Police officers stood outside Lena's room, not because she was dangerous, but because she was a witness. A participant. A cracked piece of a shattered scheme. I paused at the doorway. Through the glass, I saw her sitting on the bed, knees pulled up, arms wrapped tightly around them like she was trying to make herself small enough to disappear. Her face was pale. Her eyes were swollen. She looked nothing like the confident, stubborn woman who once laughed at my terrible jokes. She looked lost. Completely, utterly lost. I stepped inside. She didn't look up at first. But when she did, when her eyes finally met mine, she flinched. As if she had just seen a ghost rise from the ashes of her own sins. Her lips parted. Dad. Just that one word. A whisper soaked in guilt. A plea hidden inside a question. I stepped closer. The air between us felt like glass, one wrong move and it would shatter. She stared at me like I wasn't supposed to be alive. Not mentally, not emotionally, not physically. Because in her world, the world Dorian built around her, I was supposed to be drugged, confused, restrained, or quietly fading away under hospital lights. Not standing here. Not clear. Not strong. Not holding the power of truth like a blade in my hand. She swallowed hard. Dad. I didn't want to hurt you. I said nothing. She tried again. Dorian said you needed help. He said you were slipping. He said. I raised a hand. Stop. Her voice broke instantly. My words weren't loud, but they were final. I read everything, I said. Her shoulders sagged. Like someone punctured her with a needle. All the excuses leaking out of her body at once. And then, the strangest thing happened. She didn't defend herself. She didn't scream. She didn't deny it. She just crumbled. Some betrayals are loud. Hateful. Angry. Hers wasn't. Hers was quiet. Quiet like regret. Quiet like a child who realizes too late that she followed the wrong hand into the dark. She wiped her nose, shaking violently. Dad. I just wanted a life where I wasn't scared all the time. I frowned. Scared of what? She looked at her hands. You dying. You leaving me. Like Mom did. A punch to the chest. She continued. When Mom died, it felt like the world was made of glass. Like everything could crack any second. Like one day I'd wake up and you'd be gone too. Her voice trembled, then sharpened. And I wasn't going to be left with nothing. I wasn't going to be alone. Dorian said. He said you were going to retire and give everything to charity. He said you didn't trust me. he said. Her words tangled into sobs. Dad. I was scared. I sat in silence, absorbing each confession like a weight added to my chest. Fear. Manipulation. Grief. Insecurity. But also choices. Her choices. Choices she didn't have to make. Choices that burned bridges money could never rebuild. Was she manipulated? Yes. Was she vulnerable? Absolutely. But did she choose to betray me? Yes. And that truth, the truth that cut deepest, was that fear doesn't justify cruelty. Pain doesn't excuse treachery. And love doesn't protect you from being hurt by the people you give it to most freely. Her breathing turned shaky. Dad, if I could go back, I would stop it. I swear. I didn't want to poison you. I didn't know he would. I didn't know it would go that far. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But I didn't stop him either. I stepped closer. My voice was soft. Not angry. Not bitter. Just honest. You didn't protect me, I said. You protected him. She broke. Completely broke. She grabbed my hand desperately, fingers trembling, grip weak. Daddy, please. I'm so sorry. I looked at her hand. Small. Fragile. The same hand I used to hold when she was 3 years old and scared of thunderstorms. The same hand I held when she took her first step. When she cried over scraped knees. When she lost her first school competition and thought the world ended. I held that hand through her entire life. And now, she held mine like it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. Anger didn't rise in me. What rose was something far heavier. Grief. The grief of losing a daughter who was still breathing. The grief of realizing she wasn't the person I once believed she was. The grief of knowing love doesn't guarantee loyalty. But something else rose too. Responsibility. My own. Was I a perfect father? No. Did I always show her how to survive grief? No. She had carried a wound I never helped her heal. And Dorian had used that wound against her. I placed my other hand over hers. Her breath hitched. Lena, I whispered. I failed you too. Her eyes widened. I didn't teach you how to live without me. I didn't show you how to trust the right people. I didn't teach you how to spot the ones who would prey on your fear. Her face crumpled. Dad, please don't leave me. And God. That hurt. More than any poison. More than any betrayal. Because I wanted to help her. Comfort her. Save her. But saving her wasn't the lesson she needed. She needed consequence. Accountability. A path forward that didn't depend on my money or my protection. So I pulled my hand back. Her eyes widened in shock. No. I shook my head gently. You can still choose who you become next, I said softly. But that choice will not involve my money. Silence. Then a broken sob tore from her chest. It was the sound of a soul cracking open. And as she cried, as I walked out of that room, I realized something. Justice was coming. Healing might come later. But forgiveness? Forgiveness is a road some people never walk. And what happened next would decide the rest of our lives. The final verdicts arrived on a crisp morning, a quiet one that carried the weight of years of turmoil. I remember the way the sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the courtroom floor, painting long shadows like the remnants of past betrayals I'd endured. Dorian, the man who had orchestrated so much pain in my life, was sentenced to a lengthy term behind bars. It wasn't enough to undo the suffering he had caused, but it was justice, tangible and undeniable. The same day, Dr. Rourke, whose manipulation and greed had nearly broken me, lost his license to practice, effectively stripping him of the power he had wielded with such cruelty. And the laundering ring, the complex web of deceit and stolen lives that had ensnared so many innocents, collapsed under the weight of exposure. The people who thought they were untouchable were finally facing consequences. The courts, in a rare and clear recognition of the danger I had endured, granted me full protection. I was no longer just a victim in the shadows. I had standing, authority, and a shield that guaranteed I could move forward without fear. Even Lena, who had caused so much damage in ways both subtle and overt, faced the court's scrutiny. But the law, in its wisdom, recognized her deep psychological instability. Prison would not heal her, nor would it repair the lives she had shattered. Instead, the court mandated comprehensive psychological treatment, a path toward rehabilitation rather than punishment. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was a step toward balance, a measure of mercy for someone who had caused so much chaos. Amid these victories, a quiet corner of my heart was reserved for Maya, the young woman who had stepped into my life at the exact moment I had been most vulnerable. Her courage had saved me, though she had no idea of the debt she had incurred. Out of gratitude, I funded her nursing school anonymously, ensuring she could follow her dreams without ever needing to know the hand that had opened the door for her. Recognition was unnecessary. Maya didn't need to know the story behind the scholarship, the gift itself was enough. In a way, it was symbolic of everything I had learned. True strength and true justice are often invisible, quietly shaping the lives of those around us without fanfare or expectation of thanks. And then there was the quiet, the first real quiet in what felt like a lifetime. I settled into my home, the one place I had claimed for myself after the years of chaos, and sat on the porch with a cup of Grace's favorite tea in my hands. The aroma was a tender reminder, a bridge to the past that no longer cut like a knife but warmed like a memory. For the first time in years, I felt her presence, not as a wound, but as a kind of peace that had been denied to me for so long. I whispered into the morning light, letting the words drift across the still air, "It's over, Grace. And I'm still here." Being alive after everything felt like both a miracle and a testament. The world had tried to erase me, to reduce me to a cautionary tale of what happens when you trust the wrong people. But I had endured. I had survived. And more than survival, I had rebuilt. I was stronger, sharper, more self-aware than ever. My trust in people had diminished, yes, but not my capacity to feel, to hope, or to dream. The years of pain had forged me into someone new, someone capable of navigating the world with both caution and courage. I walked through my home and noticed the subtle signs of my new life. The bookshelves filled with volumes I had longed to read but never had the time for. The kitchen, carefully organized, reflected not just efficiency but comfort, a place where meals could be made in peace rather than as a battlefield of tension. Outside, the garden had begun to bloom under my careful tending, a small but tangible proof that life could thrive even after destruction. Each detail was a brick in the foundation of a life I had rebuilt from the ruins, a life I could finally call my own. As I sipped my tea, I thought about the lessons I had learned. Sometimes the family you lose teaches you who you are. The betrayals, the absences, the silences, they reveal the contours of your own strength. And sometimes, the strangers you meet remind you who you can still become. Maya, with her quiet bravery and unassuming kindness, had shown me that heroism doesn't always wear a mask or seek recognition. It is often the small, invisible acts that matter most, the gestures that ripple through the lives of others in ways we might never see but always feel. The emotional climax of this journey was not marked by fanfare or applause. It was a quiet, intimate understanding that I had arrived at a place of resolution. Justice had been served, and the people who had harmed me were now facing the consequences of their choices. The revenge that had simmered in my heart for so long had transformed into a more enduring satisfaction, the knowledge that I had survived, that I had endured, and that I had reclaimed my life in a way that no one could take from me. Yet, even in the resolution, there was room for reflection and growth. The scars of the past remained, etched into memory, but they no longer dictated my present. They served as reminders of resilience, as proof that even the deepest betrayals could be overcome with patience, strategy, and courage. Every betrayal had been a lesson. Every loss had been a teacher. And every act of courage, my own and that of those like Maya, had been a step toward reclaiming not just my life, but my agency, my power, and my voice. The sun climbed higher, spilling light across the garden, illuminating the blooms that now seemed more vibrant than ever. I allowed myself a moment of gratitude, not just for the justice delivered, but for the life I had rebuilt. I had created a home that was truly mine, a sanctuary where peace was possible and where love, though tempered by experience, could flourish again. I had emerged from the ruins with a vision for a future I could shape on my own terms, free from fear, free from the shadow of those who had tried to define me. And yet, as the chapter of justice closed, a new one quietly opened. There was the possibility of connection, of new relationships, of continued growth. Life, after all, does not end with a single victory. The future remained an open canvas, and I had learned that the brush was in my hands. I could paint boldly, with wisdom gained from the past, but also with hope, color, and daring strokes that no one could anticipate. I looked once more at the empty cup, its warmth lingering in my hands, and I realized that this was the true reward, not vengeance, not recognition, not even survival itself, but the ability to move forward fully alive. Stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. The world had tried to erase me, but instead, I had become something it could not destroy, a living testament to resilience, justice, and the power of reclaiming one's life. For anyone watching this story unfold here on VengeTaleStory, this is what we hope you take away. The journey is never easy, but the payoff, the sense of justice, closure, and self-reclamation, is worth every moment of struggle. Share in the satisfaction, the tension, and the triumph, and let it remind you that even in the darkest moments, there is a path forward. Engage with us, like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you just how powerful survival, resilience, and justice can be. Because while this story has found its resolution, the world is full of tales waiting to be told, tales of betrayal, courage, heartbreak, and revenge. And one day, a new chapter may open, revealing that life, even after ruin, always has the capacity to rise again. I set down my cup, feeling a quiet sense of triumph and peace. The tears that had once threatened to drown me were now the gentle rain nourishing the garden of my rebirth. I breathed in the morning air, letting it fill every corner of my body with renewed energy, and whispered again, more firmly this time. It's over. And I am still here. Strong. Unbroken. Fully alive. And so, with the dawn stretching before me, I stepped into the life I had earned, the life I had fought for, the life that no one could ever take away again. If you've stayed with Claire through every twist and turn, drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to VengeTaleStory. Because the story may end here, but the next journey into justice, betrayal, and vengeance is just around the corner.